Well, hello and welcome to this special professional advisor webinar where we're discussing the deceptively simple question, would you buy your own business? After all, if you wouldn't, why would anyone else? I said it's deceptively simple. That's why we've got three experts here to talk through. Starting on my right, we have Mark Loosemore, who's Executive General Manager at Wealth at IRESS. Hi, Mark.
Hi there.
And just to confuse things, two Steves. So Steve Easter, Sales Director at Fairstone. Hi, Steve.
Good morning.
And Steve Fryatt, Managing Director of the Intrinsic Wealth Network. Hi,
Morning.
Steve again. I'm Julie Marr, Editor, Professional Advisor, and we are going to kick off with the obvious scene-setting question to Mark, I think. The industry's experienced high levels of consolidatory activity over the past few years. Why do you think that is? What are the factors leading to more UK financial advisors considering an M&A strategy? Nice, simple one to kick things off.
Yeah, and I think it's a good news story, really. I think the market is probably as buoyant as I've seen it for many years. I think there's a level of optimism amongst the marketplace that we've come through RDR with a professional, motivated set of advisors that we're seeing revenues go up, they're seeing funds under management per client go up, and are seeing opportunity out there and believing that they can tap into that. And it's quite hard to do that organically at the speed that people are wanting to, so they're looking at opportunities to do that. I think at the same time, we've got a number of success stories around the consolidators, a couple of them with us today, that are actually, and that success is encouraging people and also raising capital easier as well to help things move along. I think the final thing I would add on that is I think some of the things that are happening in the marketplace, like more clarity around definitions of advice, advances of technology, are actually making some interesting new distribution plays possible, and that needs a level of scale to achieve it. So we're also seeing people move to that in an opportunistic way as well.
Okay. Steve, I was just bringing you in, and from your experience, you're fairly active as a company.
I agree with everything said there. From the seller's point of view, I think there's a lot of change in regulation at the moment. It always has been in our industry, but time constraints, regulatory burdens, costs of FCA, GDPR on the horizon, MiFID II. All of these things look at a smaller IFA business looking to have assistance and get some time back. So I think looking to sell and leverage the capital in their business, it's probably the right thing to do. Plus, as we have more acquisitions in the marketplace, it's publicised more and more in the media as well. So you get more and more principals and shareholders actually looking for that out as well as just looking to sell.
Steve, again, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the guys there. I mean, definitely that we've seen, in the previous 5 years, lots of regulatory requirements being placed on small business owners. MiFID II, GDPR is only going to heighten that. So, looking to get support of being part of a larger organisation. I think exactly as Steve said there. Not a week goes by when you're not seeing some announcement of an acquisition being made by one of the consolidators, and I think that kind of feeds the interest with people that have got potential exit in mind. And I think also, if you look at the financial services marketplace, it's still largely made up of reasonably small financial services practices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-man bands in terms of that. And so, in the natural order of things, when the ownership of that get to a point in their life cycle where they're looking to sort of slow down or capitalise and exit, I think that's just feeding the market as we see the average age of advisors.
Profile at the moment is leading to that, isn't there? There is an increasing number of people at that middle 50s, late 50s that are ready to move on with their business.
I also think we went through RDR, which focused the minds of a lot of advisors and business owners, to then the focus on the value of a business. So it's become more professional over the past few years, that's for sure. So they think there's a value in the business.
And anecdotally, just from each of your perspectives, I mean, are you seeing the numbers tick up each year rather than we haven't got to a sort of a inverted U at the moment? Is it still a slope? Would you say?
I think it's seemed pretty steady probably over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think it will continue. And I'm not sure it will accelerate anymore, but there's definitely a lot of activity out in their marketplace. And I think what's good as well is that there's a good number of businesses looking to sell and exit, and I think there's a good number of options for them out there in the marketplace as well.
Okay.
I think the only thing to bear in mind, and I agree completely with that, is that I think there is becoming more savvy about what type of business that you buy. So as a result, there is a focus on, is the business quality right? So while we're also seeing the number of acquisitions tick up, we're probably seeing the number of acquisitions that don't go through tick up as well, because people are becoming more choosy about the type of businesses that you've got. So I think we need to make firms need to make sure that they're in that position where they've got that, they can demonstrate the quality of their own business.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to disagree. I agree with each other, but if you want to disagree completely, it makes
right.
for great telling. We'll try to see if we can get some sort of disputes going. The idea of these webinars, it's not just us talking. We're looking for audience participation. There's two ways you can do that. Either please do send through questions for the panel, and I will try and get through as many of those as I can over the next half an hour, 40 minutes or so. And then we will also be running a couple of polls. And the first one, appropriately enough, I think probably should launch it about now. It's to find your own reasons as to why, if you were considering selling your business, what would be your main reason for doing so? We've touched on most of them, or some of the big ones there. Increased price pressures, regulatory change, early retirement, or administrative concerns. So do go onto the site where you registered and log. That should be, if I get my technology right, that should be going. Let's move on to our next question. Mark, again, what factors do you think are the most important to highlight to acquirers to evidence the value of a business? I mean, you touched about it now, there's people becoming more choosy. So what would we say, right, you buy me because?
Yeah, and I think if I look back, it used to be much more of a numbers game. So how many clients you got, what was your revenue, what your assets under management. I think people are becoming more savvy about trying to understand a little bit more about that and how that matches to the acquirer's proposition. So, are they the clients, the right type of clients? Either a small regional that you're acquiring, either in the right location. Will they fit in with the proposition that you're going to be offering them? So I think there is that greater level of depth that people are trying to work out as they're doing the acquiring. I think the other part of it is often a cultural fit that people are looking at. So, one of the other things that people are acquiring for is to increase advisor numbers. You don't want to acquire the firm and then half the advisors leave because they don't fit in with the culture of the organisation. So I think there's a lot more investigation about how that part of the business will work as well.
I think, if you're looking to sell a business, you've got to be looking at sustainable profits now. Gone are the times just the client numbers going forward. You're absolutely right. I think cultural is a big fit. Certainly our model, and when you look to acquire a business, you're not looking to be the end of the story, you're looking to grow. You want buy-in from all the advisors. So when you look at a business, you want sustainable profits, but you also want contracts in place, and client level service agreements in place, so you've got sustainability of the clients going forward, and also buy-in from the advisors as well. So you'd like to see a business with contracts in place, because it is amazing how many businesses you do look at, and the advisors aren't actually contracted into the business as well at the moment. So that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that obviously the business metrics are important, clearly, in terms of that, and I think also how the business controls its client data. So good access to that. Business organisation is a crucial thing. Having well articulated client service agreements, clearly evidence that delivery of service for the cost that there's been so agreed with the customers and stuff like that is all really important to be able to demonstrate you've got good, robust controls around the business, because it's going to be the guys talk there about cultural fit. Absolutely, talking earlier, you can go out there and it's there are businesses on the market looking to sell, but actually if that business isn't going to be a good cultural fit, if the client proposition where they currently are is completely alien and different to the client proposition you're bringing people into, they're just not going to work. So it's really important as part of that process to make sure that you actually are matching a good acquisition opportunity with a good acquirer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm sort of just slightly overwhelmed by all the questions that are coming through already. Thank you very much for this. I think one that I'll try and work them in as we come up in the most relevant position. But the one here I think touches on this. We have a question: is a firm with all assets on one platform or DFM more attractive than one with assets spread all over? On the intrinsic view on that.
Well, I think it's all about client suitability. So if the business that you're acquiring has articulated its client proposition clear to its customers and its client proposition is a specific platform with a specific investment proposition attached to it, then that's fine. The clients are getting what they expect, as long as the service is being delivered properly to those customers. And it's aligned with what outcomes the client's expecting, then absolutely it's great. However, if that proposition again is completely different to what your proposition is delivering, then the match isn't there. Therefore, it's probably an acquisition that neither seller nor buyer would want to do.
I think you'll have firms who've been going a long time, and they'll have a lot of legacy investments around on different DFMs, different platforms as well. So to consolidate all of those into one is very difficult, and it's a difficult conversation now with a client who's been used to an independence kind of advice scene as well. So that can be different, but I think you need to consolidate and prioritise what you've got to de-risk the business. So you can't have investments scattered all over, I would suggest. So a bit of consolidation would be good.
And I guess it depends on how strong your infrastructure is at the centre to actually make it possible to operate on multiple platforms efficiently as well. So if you've got a system that can actually, for example, have electronic contract inquiry links and valuation links out to the marketplace, you might be in a better position to actually still operate that efficiently. If you're doing all of this and it's still largely pen and paper, you're going to be really struggling.
Yeah, and ultimately it's client outcome. As Steve said, it has to be right for the client.
Now I've got so many questions coming through. I'm trying to balance these all in my head, and we're going to be here for a good few hours. Make yourself comfortable, everyone. What changes would you make to a business to increase its value? I think we'll start with Intrinsic again.
Again, I suppose it comes back to some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier in terms of how would you increase the value of the business. I think it's having a strong focus on costs. In terms, I think Steve mentioned earlier, it's important that the business is profitable in its own right. In terms that there might be certain more efficiencies you can get through acquisition, but nevertheless they need a strong focus on their costs. I think also, going to go back to client data and be able to manage the business effectively and efficiently. It's having those service agreements in place, making sure the company is delivering on those service agreements. So I think they would be the main things for me. But I say since RDR, more and more income through the advisory space is now being generated through ongoing service. It's important that that's being delivered in the right way as the client expects.
I would also say that it's shown like a clean PR history, just so that it's managed. You've got systems and processes in place. They have to be robust, to tackle everything that hits us in our industry of change. So if you have a clean bill of health there, that's important, and you can demonstrate going back over as well as going forward from an acquirer. That's very important.
It's demonstrating that control, isn't it, and that auditability about what you've been doing with the business, and it's got to be a real control and real demonstration of it. One of the things I think people mustn't do is try and sort of mask it and hide it, because these guys are at the top of their game. That's why they're in the consolidation market, and they're going to see through anything like that. So it's having true processes that you can go back and look at and show.
And the technology to show the MI there. So when we do some due diligence, it's an easy fit, and it's an easy integration of the two businesses.
Okay, thank you. I'll go with another question here from our audience. We mentioned obviously client, the primacy of the client earlier, and the question is: do you think that M&A has an impact on IFA or private clients' appetite to do business with firms that are under new ownership? Additionally, to what extent does, let me use my glasses, I think it might be easier, does the historic notion of client loyalty still hold true? Client loyalty, there you are, you're caring about the client. Do they care about you guys?
Sorry.
No.
I would say that they definitely do. I think financial services is always built on relationship and trust from the bottom up. It always has been. I think the relationship is between the client and the advisor. And certainly the model that we at Fairstone operate is 2 years working together. So that's a due diligence from both parties on the acquiring side and also the selling side. But also from a client, they understand the journey that their advisor is on as well. So the integration is important from both sides. So it should be business as usual from a client's perspective, because that's the client outcomes that's important.
Yes.
I this might be very boring, but I'm going to agree again.
Well, we'll
take
it.
I will try my best to disagree at some point in the future. But absolutely, customer loyalty is something that you can't expect or demand, in terms of that. It's something that you earn through, delivery of excellent service. So again, looking for a business to acquire or a business that's looking to maximise its value to be acquired, it's to focus on that in terms of looking after customers and giving the right journey. And then the art of making a good acquisition is making sure you take that over, in terms of that, and so you integrate those advisors and those clients into the business as effectively as you possibly can, and make sure they carry on taking that client on the journey that they expected to be on in the first place. So, to a certain extent, it should enhance the journey, because the acquisition, coming to a larger business, we're going to give them more support, more training, in the background, so they can focus on that service delivery more and less about the actual day-to-day nuts and bolts of running the business, regulation changes, and everything that goes with it.
Okay. So I'll give this close to a disagreement as we can get. Because I think in the face-to-face market, where there is engagement with the end client, then I absolutely agree that customer loyalty exists. I do think there are parts of client banks that aren't fully engaged at the moment, and I do think there are some new distribution channels that some consolidators are trying to aim the market. They're more mass market type propositions, and I think the customer loyalty there is less strong. It's still there, but it's not as strong. And there it is more about the proposition being right for them, about efficiency, and about being easy to do business with. So I think at certain segments, absolutely customer loyalty, but there are wider opportunities that are still relatively untapped, where I think there can be some further.
Yeah, I think from a customer's point of view, if they're coming from an independent background, and then they're being consolidated, if you like, to a one ship, one fit solution, then that could be a difficult conversation to the client. But as long as they're going to a consolidator who has an independent view, then that should be a simple fit.
Okay, thank you. Just to balance out, we've already talked about what you're looking for to increased value, but again, from the Intrinsic Fairstone point of view, and then I'll come on to Mark, when you're considering acquiring another advice firm, what sort of factors might put you off? Intrinsic first?
Yeah, it's probably the opposite of the question in terms of
absolutely right.
that. So,
fair enough.
But in terms of that, but
that's at least consistent.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But a business that can't demonstrate control over over its client base and its customers, poorly contracted advisors or advisors that have no contract with the advisory firm. A poorly articulated sales process, service agreements that aren't being fulfilled in the correct manner. It's kind of pretty obvious stuff, but that would do it. And again, I think it comes down to that bit that we've all spoken about is you can have all of those things, and they could be all doing really, really well and really professionally. But overall, if the proposition is just so far apart, or if the culture of the business is different to ours or whatever the consolidator, then again that might be one of those that you decide not to do, not because it's a bad business, but it just doesn't fit with the model that we've got.
I agree. Yeah, lack of process is key. You need to have a clear investment strategy. That's always important, to make sure that the culture in that business is similar to what we're doing. And also succession planning, that's important from us. We acquire a firm, you want to have that firm in your books for a long time. So, the retiring advisor in 4 or 5 years' time, where's the succession path from that? So where's the 5-year business plan in there? And if there's no 5-year business plan, or even an essence of a plan, then you wonder how that business is being run.
I think risk is the other one I hear all the time. I think we've touched on MiFID II coming with more demands in terms of controls and information you're storing. We've got GDPR with more demands on data protection. If you haven't got the controls in place and they're not demonstrable to the acquirer, there's just risk there of how they're going to be operating as they go through 2018. So risk is going to get bigger and bigger, and that can be the reason why a number of these deals aren't going through at the moment.
Outside question. Thank you very much for all these coming through. What trends are being identified from the acquisitions on business owners staying in the business but leveraging of larger backers around technology and regulation as opposed to a pure exit strategy? Are you seeing people sticking around, or are they straight out the door with a check?
Well, it's kind of a bit of both. I mean, we have a variety of sort of acquisition models. you know, one of our biggest areas of acquisition is like in our internal market. So in our appointed representative network, it's the practice buyout. And we've seen a variety of everything, you know, people exiting and leaving, having transitioned their clients across to the new appointed representative. But equally, you know, we've seen a growing number of sole traders within the network who are sort of like increasingly tired of the regulatory and compliance and running the business burden that's put on them. And actually the bit they're good at and they excel in is face-to-face interaction with their customers, and that's why they've been successful in the past, are looking to align themselves with larger businesses. Yeah. So, as you said, you know, the regulatory burden, the administrative burden, you know, whether it's, you know, access to paraplanning support, technical and training support, and all the rest of it, and they can get back to that part of the business they love so much, and that's actually, you know, face-to-face with clients giving good advice.
Yeah. And we operate a sell-in steer, so our average age of the major shareholder would be around over 50, so it's quite young really. So they're looking to capitalise the business and stay around. That's the ideal. But we still have people who come to us and, you know, they're 60, just want to get out. They've had enough because of all the things that Steve's just talked about, regulatory burden and costs. But interestingly enough, when you take all of that away from the desk and they've been trading for 6 to 12 months without that, they start to get their mojo back, if you like, into the industry and start enjoying what they're doing again. So actually they'll stay around a little bit longer than they actually thought.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's actually quite hard for some people to let go as well. I mean, people have been doing this for a number of years. It's almost their baby, isn't it? So they do want to stay around, but want to go back to the good old days where they weren't having to hold all the costs of that compliance burden, etc., and the technology. So no, I agree with the guys, as I say. I
think that's really, really important, and we've seen it on a number of occasions. Is that actually, you know, it's clearly, obviously, you know, the price is a key concern. They you know, built a business, you want to realise good value for that business. But also, what's more important to a large number of sellers is actually making sure they're going to interest their customers and their clients with someone that they can rely on to carry on, you know, providing that level of service and support that they've seen in the past. Absolutely, 100%.
And also in their business, when they build a business, they usually have a team behind them of administrators and you know, a few advisors, and they want to make sure that all of that is going to be looked after in the future.
When we've worked with those people for 20, 30
Absolutely,
years.
There's an element of loyalty there, isn't there? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And that's it's almost as if I planned this. It seemed like they're talking about the trends and why people are setting up. And hey, we'll come to the end of our first poll, and we have a clear winner. 73%. Actually, there were only two of the 4 answers we gave. Only 2 were picked up on. Regulatory change was second with 27%, which definitely means there's more than 1 or 2 people watching this and contributing to the polls. Thank you very much for that. But the clear winner, early retirement at 73%. So thank you for everyone who took part in those polls. And what I'll do is I will now ask my question that sets up the next poll, which is moving on to the money side of thing. We had to raise its head eventually. Mark, how do you see the prices that IFA businesses have achieved changing over the next 2 or 3 years? In other words, will demand outstrip supply or vice versa?
Well, if they had a crystal ball, it'd be great. Crystal ball with Brexit and potential Corbyn in power. When I think about that question, I also look at some of the things that we do know about and can predict. So we talked about GDPR and MiFID II already. And I think what that's going to do is maybe polarize the market. So I don't know whether there is a blanket answer that all businesses will change in X direction. Sure. I think what will happen is that people will become quite selective in the businesses that they go to because of this appetite for risk and the increased cost of and penalty of risk. And there'll be fewer firms that can actually meet that burden. What I think that means is that those firms that do meet those burdens, so those people that have strong, robust business models, that have systems in place, that can have details on their client bank, have audit trails that are effective, will have an increased high value in the marketplace. But those that don't, I think you'll see the value struggle to maintain its place, and I think you may get a polarisation between the two businesses.
I agree with all of that, but I also think that the way we value businesses will change. It'll go away from, you know, the percentages of funds under management, assets under management. It'll go to sustainable profits because that's what you consolidate the profits going forward. Will it change? I think there's enough business to go around. There's just like 3,500. IFA is still direct authorised, so there's a lot of advisors there. The only thing I can see changing the industry is getting the younger advisors to come in and the startups that we didn't have over the past 2 or 3 years. the only issue.
Yeah. I again, boringly enough,
No,
I will agree. But again, I think there will be a consistent level of demand going forward, and there's probably going to be a reasonably consistent level of supply as well. So I'm not sure whether you'll see values either rise or fall dramatically from where we are today. As we said, there's various models. A percentage of assets under advice, multiple of profits, and within our practice buyout model within Intrinsic, we look at actually the ongoing advice income that you're delivering against the costs of actually delivering that ongoing advice, and then a multiple of that. So I don't think there are any wrong valuation models out there. It depends on the business that's being acquired. And as I said earlier, I think there's the average age of an advisor, business owner in financial services has probably stayed the same at around mid-50s ever since I was in the industry. So as more of those get towards the earlier pole in terms of early retirement, although I did wonder whether regulatory change is forcing the decision to retire early.
There must be focus in the mind, you'd have thought. Yeah.
Absolutely, in terms of that. So I think that stream of businesses looking to capitalise and exit will maintain into the years ahead.
And the other dimension to think about in terms of value is also how you get your money. So are you getting it lump sum up front? Are you getting it back? Are you getting it in shares of the future business? And that will have an effect on the quantity as well that you get.
And there's just new initiatives as well. We're just launching individual buyout option for single advisors, with a certain level of revenue, so they can take a lump sum and also effectively take an annuity over the next 15 years. So trying to assist single IFAs as well as businesses as well. So trying to be different in the market. I guess you'll see a lot of that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to a couple of technology-oriented questions in a second. So I think ahead of that, and because we're around about halfway through through this session, I will now open the second poll. So please do, if we can get similar reactions, that would be fantastic. In terms of enhancing the value of your business, which area has your advisor technology most helped you with? A, financials, B, data, C, better governance and processes, or D, sustainability. So let's declare that poll open and move on to our next question. Mark, how critical do you reckon is that due diligence processes includes a thorough examination of the quality of client records and data kept by their acquisition target?
Client data and the client records has got to be at the heart of the due diligence that is done. If we go back to the risk point, that's where the risk goes, but it's also where you're going to find your opportunity as well for mining it. So we talked about making sure that the proposition matches that client back when you move from a vendor to acquirer. I think that's an important part of that. I think accuracy of that data, and I think the other thing to mention on client data is, generally, it was a comment in the industry, I think it's the client data is typically not good. I think we've already been through a lot of acquisitions in the past, so you've got this acquisition on acquisition on acquisition, and data's been pulled together and is in a mess. But if you leave it in that state, when it comes to the acquisition, it makes the whole process far harder for both sides and time's wasted. So sort it out.
Inevitably, part of acquisition is integration. So better technology, it's easier to integrate. So that bedding in period goes a lot quicker and smoother. So that's very, very important. Plus innovation of the clients and accounts and everything else. It's important we've got clean data, but one of the issues we've had is sometimes you'll go into businesses and they don't have clean data, or they've got Excel sheets and bits and pieces tied up all over. Exactly. So uniform, that's very difficult. But also, I think sometimes the thought is that because they've got a back office system, they'll press a button and data will magically appear somewhere else. That's not the case.
It's essential. You need clear, client data in a usable format. And the thing is here that there is a lot of work involved to get it. No matter how good the systems are, rubbish in, rubbish out. So if I were out there thinking that in the next sort of 3 to 5 years I'm looking to exit, I would start getting my data and client records in good order in terms of that. And also, I think one of the things that has helped and has improved overall record keeping has been an impact of RDR. Now the ongoing service, whether it be 6 monthly annual reviews and client communication in between and all the rest of it, to demonstrate value to the client of paying for an ongoing advice service, has been an excellent opportunity to actually get that data in order. and get that robust. And what you'll find is, and what we find is that that those clients that are being serviced within a business, normally it's in good order.
Yeah.
But as Mark said earlier, those clients that don't have the loyalty probably aren't engaged with a transaction maybe 3, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a really good opportunity when you're going through that cleansing process to re-engage with those customers as well. And so, increasing the income from the business, increasing the quality of your data will increase the value and also the sellability of your business and the attractiveness to acquirers.
Shouldn't you do that anyway? So we're talking
Absolutely,
about doing this to
it's good business practice.
It's good business practice.
Good business practice, you're right.
Okay, well, next one is well and truly in technology world, so I'm going to leave Mark to last because I think I know some of the answers to this one. But from the consolidated point of view, how important is a robust technology ecosystem to the consolidated business? Intrinsic thoughts?
Well, I'll go to robust technology. The ecosystem bit is probably a little bit too technical for technical me, but absolutely, really important because I think, Mark's exactly right. What I was talking about earlier is not just something that people should be doing to enhance their value or the sellability of their business. It's something that all financial services practice should be doing. It should have good quality data that it uses in a way to benefit and improve the outcome of their clients. And the byproduct of that would be at some point in the future you have a business that you can sell and there'll be a sort of a variety of acquirers that will be looking for it. But having that technology to allow you to do that is obviously extremely important. Again, Excel spreadsheets are a thing of the past. But having a good customer relationship management system with good data that you can manipulate and use in a variety of ways to communicate with your clients on an ongoing basis is just essential in terms of that. There's going to be an increase. We've talked about MiFID II, GDPR. Just to comply with those, you're going to need far better systems than a lot of practices sort of use at the moment in terms of that. So absolutely, it's as essential as everything else we've spoken about earlier.
I think it demonstrates value, isn't it? The better the systems you've got, the more data you can bring off there. One of the interesting points of evaluation is, the amount of clients you've got, what funds and demands they've got, what advisor contracts are in place, but also the age of your client as well, because essentially if you can demonstrate your the demographics of your client base is around about the 55 mark, well, that's got to be more valuable than if the demographics are going to be 75 years old because you've got more lifestyle, more life time in the client. So be able to produce that is going to show how valuable your business is, because average age of advisor, as we said before, has always been 55 for some reason. And your clients tend to be 5 years either side of that in many ways. So being able to demonstrate that you've got a handle on your client bank shows the value of the business as well.
And just picking up on that point as well is that I think it's less of a factor now. Obviously you knowing the demographic of your clients is important. But I think it's less important to the value. I think with the advent of pension freedoms and clients sort of staying invested for longer means that one, obviously the system you operate in and work off those clients is really important, but it actually means that those clients are less likely to annuitise and kind of almost exit from that perspective. They're going to stay invested probably right the way through to they hit the grave sort of thing. So in terms of that, so absolutely, technology will be the enabler to ensuring you can deliver that in an effective and efficient way.
Mark, you're not that bothered.
Vague interest. And I guess I look at it from both the vendor's point of view, but also the consolidator themselves. And from the consolidator's point of view, I think having a solution that you can actually bring the data in and the client banks into is essential. I have seen it several times where either the consolidators had to run two separate systems in which they don't get the economies of scale, they don't actually get most of the benefits they were probably planning on the acquisition, or they've had to, in some cases, dumb down the proposition that they're offering because their central system doesn't offer the flexibility that the vendors' systems had. So I think the consolidators need to have state-of-the-art technology. I think it's also a plus because remember we're talking about wanting to encourage the right sort of firms to join us when we're in the consolidation position, and if you've got the best solution, it's an attraction for people to come in, and then once you do acquire the firm, it's easier to embed people into your business. If you've got a system that makes their lives easier, it almost acts as an operational manual to them to bring them in if it's done right. So I think there's huge benefits to making sure you've got the best possible solution at the centre.
Well, I think we can expand on that now. I mean, how can having the right integrated advisor technology in place help address issues, including data, financial process, everything that have drilling down into different parts of the tech?
So I think if you're going back to that client data point of view, I mean, good systems at the centre can help with cleansing the data. I think you can link out into sort of what I think is meant by the ecosystem is going out to other people in the financial services industry, like the platforms, like the product providers, to get data in to make sure that your portfolio data is current, up to date, and accurate. And I think if you do that, it's much more easier. You can just bring in some base details and then go out to the platforms to bring the rest of the data in. So I think, you know, having that flexibility at the centre will really enhance your proposition. And if you've got that, then you can start offering other services to your clients, like your digital services, which if you don't get the data right at the centre, you can't do.
I was going to say that question was more aimed at Mark, but if you two want to take a swing at it.
I was going to say that's very important for utilising the client data going forward. You know, we talk about GDPR, but put that to one side. It's how you actually use that client data going forward. The better the client record, the more you do it.
You can offer a digital service to a client and tell them they've got an out-of-date portfolio. You know, you log into your bank account, you get your details as it was there and there that day. You don't expect to have 6-month-old figures from your last client meeting.
It'd be interesting to see how far, you know, with the open banking coming in terms of that and access to that, just how much of a sort of a client's balance sheet that we can create within a central portal to have access to that, because I think that will be a real sort of interest to clients who are interested in their financial affairs, not just having access to one section of their wealth, but also property, bank accounts and the whole piece. So also create their sort of personal.
We've got open banking standards happening in January, which will enable that data to come into these systems. So I think
some of the plans that IRESS are bringing through look amazing. I think that can only better the service that we can give clients. Some of the technology looks amazing.
Is there somebody you've not got a sort of almost perfect technological storm, MiFID and GDPR and all these different things come through at the same time? Isn't that making life incredibly difficult, or?
There are challenges, but I think what we're finding is you've got the robust technology, then you should be able to answer both with the same solution. So what you're looking for is a technology that has the flexibility to be moulded to your business, but actually is connected enough to make sure that you're linking to the various data sources around the industry, and that should stand you in good stead then for both GDPR and MiFID too.
I've got another question coming in here. Again, in terms of, well, I suppose this is good. I was going to think this was about technology, but it turns out we're talking about solutions products. In the context of vertical integration, how do you avoid perceived shoehorning into consolidators' preferred solutions and products? Intrinsic first.
I would like to say it's quite simple, but I think from our perspective, it's demonstrating that you're focusing on what's best for the client. So, if there is no tangible reason to move from one platform to another, and there's no client benefit in doing that, then don't do it. It is kind of as simple as that. And if you focus on a stage transition of customers, it's at client review their situations, and if everything they have got is fine, then that's fine. If it's not, then you can move it across, if appropriate, onto the central solution. But again, I think shoehorning is probably a one-way ticket to disaster at some point in the future in terms of that. And if you carry on focusing on what's best for customer, then I don't think you'll go far wrong.
Yeah. I think if the business has been valued on funds under management and they have to go into a single solution, that's a recipe for disaster. Sure. So therefore, if you just have a centralised investment proposition, and as Steve right, if the client outcome is correct, then that's fine. So that's why we remain independent, chartered, to make sure that a shoehorn isn't an option or an issue.
I guess that's why you were saying earlier about the due diligence process, looking at, is the proposition right in the first place? Because if it's not ever going to work for the acquirer business, walk away before the acquisition.
Again, that's the difficulty of a conversation with an advisor. You've your trusted advisor for 30 years, now you're coming from an independent background, going to a single-based solution, that's got to be a difficult conversation, I believe.
I'm going to wind up fairly shortly, but I've got a couple of these. Always feels like they're saving the question time questions. There's almost light-hearted at the end, but there we go. It's two-parter here. First of all, do you think there are businesses out there who are too big to be acquired? Anything beyond you? What do you have on your no, not what you have on your sites? Is there anyone too big, or you take them all?
It's an interesting one. Instinctively, I'd say not. But again, it's kind of one of those things. It's the fit, it's the match, it's the infrastructure that sits around it, and I don't think cost would be a problem. It's the stuff that sits around that in terms of actually integrating that business with another business. So there probably is. I don't think we've come across one that we've walked away with because it's just too big.
Yeah.
And there are acquirers out there that are sort of and providers that will invest and buy into distribution. So
I think from a value point of view, there's never one that's going to be too big. It's just the cultural difficulties get more great and emphasise the bigger the firm.
And I think if you take a look outside of the current financial services market and take your eyes out even bigger, saying is there a big player wanting to come in? A Google, an Amazon, a Tesco's. There's some deep pockets out there that might want to come into the UK financial services and maybe prepare to do big acquisitions. So I don't think that their size will put it off.
And then almost now we've reached the Alice in Wonderland question: is when do you think we're going to see consolidators buying consolidators?
I think that's already taken place, is it not?
Yeah. Of course, I thought you were just chatting to each other beforehand. I had no idea when you heard it here first. No, that's not true at all. Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, let's see if I can finish off my little poll. Let's press the magic. Yeah, let's try that. Come on. See, we're winding up for a big finish. No, it's going to, the technology, look at it, it's calculating, it's doing its little, hello, here we go. There we actually got it. We're going to have our final one. So what was my question? In terms of enhancing the value of your business, which areas your advisor technology most helped you with? And this time we got 3 answers. Sustainability, 8%. Better governance and processes, second place with 31%. Nobody was interested in financials. I mean, why would we in this industry? And therefore the winner, 62% data. Again, thank you so much for taking part and in that. And thank you for all your questions. Thank you for your engagement in taking part in the polls. And while I'm doing all my thank yous, I should thank, of course, our wonderful experts, for Mark, Steve and Steve, for taking the time and you taking the time to watch it. Please do tune in. We will have another PA webinar, I believe, lined up for December. So hopefully see you then. Thank you very much for watching.